Daniel Craig. The name alone conjures images of tuxedos, martinis, and that icy stare that could stop a bullet. But the man behind Bond? He's got a past that's stranger than any spy thriller. We're talking frozen poultry heists, park bench naps, and accents that terrified even him. Forget what you think you know. These 10 facts will completely change how you see the world's most famous secret agent. At number 10, his middle name is Rotten. And no, that's not a typo from a drunk genealogist. Daniel Rotten Craig got this delightfully bizarre name from his great-great-grandmother, Grace Matilda Rotten. It's the kind of name that sounds like it belongs to a Victorian-era explorer who discovered a new species of poisonous frog. But here's where it gets even weirder. Craig also descends from French Huguenots, Protestant refugees who fled religious persecution, and a first baronet naval officer. So this guy who would eventually play a working-class spy with a chip on his shoulder? He's got aristocratic blood coursing through his veins. The irony is almost Shakespearean. Picture young Daniel at school, getting teased about his fancy middle name while living in working-class Liverpool. Little did those kids know they were mocking someone whose family tree reads like a historical drama. At number 9, he got into a proper bar fight over his girlfriend, like an actual James Bond scene, except messier and without the quips. Craig was out with his girlfriend when some guy thought it'd be brilliant to pinch her rear end. Bold move. Terrible decision. Craig, channeling every ounce of righteous fury, confronted the man, and things escalated fast. This wasn't some staged movie punch. This was real adrenaline, real anger, the kind of moment where your hands shake afterward. What's fascinating is that Craig admits he's not naturally confrontational. He's described himself as quite shy, actually. But in that moment, something snapped. The protective instinct kicked in, and suddenly, the guy who spends months training for fight choreography was in an actual altercation. At number 8, someone literally asked him if he looked like Daniel Craig, while he was standing right there. The universe has a sense of humor. Picture this. Craig's in an American cinema, wearing a disguise because he's trying to enjoy a film without being mobbed. Baseball cap, sunglasses, the whole incognito celebrity starter pack. He's probably thinking he's nailed it, blending in perfectly with the popcorn-munching masses. Then,
Oh, thank you.
someone sidles up to him. Has anyone ever told you that you look like Daniel Craig? Now, Daniel Craig could have done anything. Launched into a whole bit. Made a joke. But no, he just looked at them, said no, and walked away. Stone cold. Absolutely deadpan. The restraint it must have taken not to crack a smile. That's real acting. At number 7, he made an uncredited cameo in Star Wars, because apparently being James Bond wasn't geeky enough for him. Craig played the stormtrooper who Rey mind tricks in The Force Awakens. You know the scene. Rey's captured, she waves her hand, and suddenly, JB-007 is releasing her restraints and leaving the cell door open. You will remove these restraints and leave this cell with the door open. But here's what makes this perfect. Craig is a massive sci-fi nerd. We're talking Star Trek, Doctor Who, Firefly, the whole pantheon. For him, being in Star Wars wasn't some throwaway favor. It was a childhood dream realized, even if nobody could see his face. At number 6, he was Marvel's first choice for Thor. Let that mental image sink in for a second. Before Chris Hemsworth became the golden-haired god we know today, Marvel Studios wanted Craig, Daniel Craig, as Thor. The timeline was right. This was before he'd become synonymous with Bond. But can you imagine? A British, intense, probably blonde-wigged Craig wielding Mjolnir and talking about Asgard? The Marvel Cinematic Universe would have been completely different. No charming Hemsworth himbo energy. Instead, we'd have gotten Craig's trademark intensity applied to a Norse deity. Thor would have been darker, grittier, probably drinking something stronger than mead in those Asgardian halls. Why didn't it happen? Craig reportedly turned it down, possibly because he was already eyeing or committed to Bond. Smart move in hindsight. He became an icon. But somewhere in the multiverse, there's a version of events where Craig's Thor is facing off against Loki, and honestly, that would have been fascinating. At number 5, he's terrible at poker. It's absolutely dreadful, which is hilarious considering Casino Royale. According to Mads Mikkelsen, Craig's co-star in Casino Royale, everyone at that iconic poker table knew how to play except one person, Daniel Craig. Mikkelsen said Craig had no clue and sucked at the game. Let that irony marinate for a moment. The entire climax of Casino Royale hinges on an intense, high-stakes poker game. Bond's reading tells, making calculated bets, playing psychological warfare across green felt. And the actor playing him couldn't tell a flush from a straight if his life depended on it. The crew had to coach Craig through every hand. They'd signal him, bet here, fold there, look confident now. It's movie magic in the most literal sense. Meanwhile, Mikkelsen, an actual decent poker player, is sitting across from him trying not to laugh at the absurdity. When this fact hit Reddit, the internet lost its collective mind. You mean to tell me James Bond can defuse a bomb, but can't play Texas Hold'em? Yes. Yes. That's exactly what we're telling you. At number 4, his body was insured for $9.5 million. Not his face, not his voice, his body. After filming Casino Royale and before starting Quantum of Solace, someone at the studio did the math. Craig does his own stunts. Craig throws himself off buildings.
He stated that whenever he did have money, he spent it on beer and smoked salmon. He remembers shoplifting
Just through walls, gets into brutal fight scenes that look painful, because they kind of are. Craig's body is basically the entire production, so they insured it for $9.5 million. Think about what that means practically. Every time Craig went for a jog, someone at an insurance company was probably sweating. Skiing? Absolutely not. Extreme sports? Are you insane? The man was a walking investment, and they needed him intact. Craig has talked about the physical toll of Bond, the injuries, the rehab, the brutal training regimens. He wasn't just getting in shape. He was transforming his body into a weapon, a tool, a very expensive piece of equipment that needed to survive 5 films. At number 3, he was terrified using his southern accent in Knives Out. Absolutely petrified. And then it became the most talked about part of the film. Benoit Blanc's accent is a thing of beauty and confusion. It's southern, sure, but what kind of southern? Kentucky? Georgia? Some fictional state that exists only in Craig's imagination? Nobody can quite pin it down, and that's part of its charm. But when Craig first used it on set, he was convinced it was terrible. He's admitted he was terrified, certain he'd made a catastrophic choice. Imagine, you're Daniel Craig, you've played James Bond, and now you're standing in front of Rian Johnson doing your best Foghorn Leghorn impression, wondering if your career is about to nosedive. The crew's reaction probably didn't help. There's always that pause, that moment where everyone's processing what they just heard. Is it brilliant? Is it bizarre? Is it brilliantly bizarre?
And, as you know,
Turns
we had
out,
some
yes.
Film tests, and in the end,
To all of the above. At number 2, he stole a frozen duck, using his girlfriend as a decoy, by pretending she was pregnant, with poultry. This is the story that separates struggling actor from superstar. Before the fame, before the millions, Craig was broke. Not tight budget broke, actually genuinely struggling. And one day, he and his then girlfriend decided they wanted a proper meal. So they hatched a plan. His girlfriend would hide a frozen duck under her skirt, pretending to be pregnant. Craig would act as the decoy, distracting staff, maybe making conversation, being charming. Then they'd walk out with their illicit poultry tucked away like the world's weirdest heist. At number 1, just weeks before being announced as James Bond, Craig was homeless, sleeping on park benches in London, rock bottom with a view of the sky. October 2005. Craig's career was going nowhere, or that's how it felt. He was talented, sure, but talent doesn't pay rent. He'd been struggling for years, and now he was out of options. No apartment, no money, just park benches and the cold London night. A couple eventually offered him a place to stay. That generosity. Those strangers who saw someone struggling and helped. Craig credits as a turning point. Not just practically, but spiritually. When you've been that low, when you've slept rough, you remember it. It changes you. Weeks later, he got the call. James Bond. The role that would make him a household name, earn him millions, define a generation of cinema. From park benches to premiere red carpets in a matter of months. The trajectory is almost unbelievable. It's the kind of before and after that feels like fiction, except it's real. Craig lived it. The desperation, the uncertainty, the genuine fear of what comes next, and then the sudden, overwhelming reversal. He's talked about that time carefully, gratefully, never forgetting where he came from, never taking the success for granted, because he knows, really knows, how quickly everything can disappear.